In this video, we'll be using the ARV calculator to get an accurate after-repair value using a combination of comps from Zillow and Redfin. While the best comps will always come from the MLS, this combo can be an excellent start before you engage with a realtor. The purpose of this calculator is not to provide you with comps, it's to help you adjust them to get to an accurate ARV, one that is going to be much closer to a true appraisal value, because the tool guides you in using the same standard appraisal techniques that an appraiser is going to use when you try to sell your property. The cardinal rule of real estate investing is to never let anyone tell you what a property is worth. 99% of people telling you the value of a property have a direct conflict of interest with you when they're trying to get you to buy it. I'm not saying that everyone is a crook, but you need to be looking out for number one, so trust but verify your numbers. And the best way to be sure of your numbers is to be an expert at running them. And that is what this tool is going to help you do. So let's get to it. As you can see, we've already performed a search here, just to show you what the end result is going to look like. But don't worry, we'll start over and show you how to get here. The tool is comprised of two tabs, the Comps Search tab and the Adjustments tab. The Comps tab is where you will search and select the properties that will comprise your appraisal. Getting the right comps is really important and is a good first step, but this is where most investors stop and leave money on the table. The Adjustments tab is where all the power is. When you use the Adjustments tab, this is as close as you're going to get to how an appraiser is going to look at a property, and it's going to get you that much closer to its true market value. But first, let's talk about the Comps tab, because if you don't select the right comps in the first place, your adjustments aren't going to mean very much. The Comps tab is split into three sections: the subject property area, the map, and the list of comps. The subject property area shows you the basics of the property, the ARV based on an average of the selected comps, and the final adjusted ARV, which gives you the true market value of the property. The map is really important to help you determine the validity of your comps. One of the most important criteria for selecting comps is the proximity of the comp to your subject property. In many cities, neighborhoods can change from street to street, and a comp just outside of neighborhood lines or just across the street can skew your valuation significantly. It's not always obvious where neighborhood lines are, but you can use rules of thumb that include larger arterial roads, parks, train tracks, and watercourses. So as you see here, our neighborhood is roughly delineated by these two roads and the golf course on the other side. Down below we have the comps area. You can select and deselect comps from the map, and that will also rerun the ARV calculations. So you can immediately see how adding or removing a property will affect your average and adjusted ARVs. You can also delete comps if they're completely wrong and you know that you won't be using them in the future. When you do a search, we provide you with suggestions from Zillow. Zillow's coverage varies greatly by area, and you should use these suggestions only as a starting point. The best way to get comps is through your agent using the MLS, but in a pinch, if you have Redfin, for example, in your area, you can often get away with just using these two resources, and that's what we'll do today. We found this place for auction on Zillow and want to evaluate if it's going to be a good deal. The foreclosure estimate is $365K, which Zillow says is about $27K below its estimate of value. It's looking pretty awesome so far, so let's dig deeper. It's crucial that the subject property information is filled in, as it's required for the ARV calculations. So if Zillow doesn't have the data for the subject property bedrooms and bathrooms and square footage, then you should go ahead and Google that information to see if you can find it elsewhere. For the comps, like I said before, you should use these suggestions just as a starting point, and this tool works best when you have comps from your realtor or from other reliable sources of recent sales data like Redfin. So let's look at the map and comps list for a second and do some evaluation. The subject property is indicated by the red pin, and the comps are the blue houses surrounding it. As you can see, the comps appear to be inside of the neighborhood boundaries, so that's great. But a few of them appear to be more than 3 to 6 months old. It's late August 2016 right now, and you can see that we have a couple from October 2015. So automatically we know to deselect those for now. When we deselect them, The blue houses disappear from the map, and our ARVs adjust accordingly. At this point, our ARV is around $403,000, which is close to that $27,000 margin over the foreclosure estimate that Zillow said the property was worth. But as we go along, we'll see how their automated estimate falls down. Looking at the remaining comps, we can see that one has 25% less square footage than our subject property, so let's deselect that one as well for now. At this point, we don't have enough comps to get an accurate measure of value, and we have to add some other ones. So let's go to Redfin and get some other sales from the neighborhood from within the last 3 months. Here's a result of recent sales from Redfin, and you can see that now we can get comps that are even closer in proximity to the subject property than what Zillow suggested, which gives us an even more accurate measure of value. So let's pick these 4 and add them to our comps. We can add them to our comps by searching for their addresses in the additional search box at the bottom of the comps tab. This search box also uses Zillow data just like the top one, so that if you have coverage in your area, the property basics should pre-populate for you automatically. If they don't, you can still copy that data from your other sources of comps, like we just found them in Redfin, and enter it into the calculator. So now that we have added these properties, let's select 4 or 5 and go to the Adjustments tab. This is where the real power of the calculator comes in. It is modeled after the Uniform Residential Appraisal Report form used by virtually every appraiser in the country, so that in the end, you can be pretty sure that your numbers are going to be very similar to what an appraiser is going to come up with when you try to sell the property. Of course, market conditions can change very quickly, and the appraiser may select different comps from you, but by following their process, you're really going to mitigate as much of the risk of determining value as you can control. So let's get back to it and go over the sections of the Adjustments tab that are going to help you in getting to the true value of your property. Going across the top, we have the basic data for our subject property and the comps that we selected on the Comp Search tab. You should have at least 3 or 4 comps selected. 4 is pretty good, 5 will give you a really good indication of value, but you should make sure to have at least 3. Any cell that you see that has an incomplete underline is one which you can edit and adjust. So say you know that this property is actually 2,600 square feet even. You can adjust it here. So if there's anything missing from the automatic lookup, you have the ability to add it. The bottom features section of this screen is the most important part of the calculator, and that is, what are the features that you are going to be comparing your properties against, and more importantly, what is the value of those features? Getting this right is what's going to get you the absolutely most accurate determination of value. So let's fill it out. On the left side, we have the features and their values in their neighborhood. The sheet starts off with basic features like lot size, bedrooms, and bathrooms, but you can add any number of features to compare against. So say that a view was an important consideration in this neighborhood. I know that these properties are in the foothills of the mountains, and 3 of them have a mountain view, and the other one doesn't. So I can add mountain view as a feature and assign it a value. Similarly for pools or basements or any other valuable feature that is different between your properties that you're comparing. As far as what each feature is worth, values vary widely between markets, even between neighborhoods, so you will need to come up with your own data for the neighborhood that you're targeting. If experience doesn't tell you what those values are, one trick is to use the tool itself to come up with 3 comps that are exactly the same, 1 comp that is missing that feature, and then you would check for the differences in value. If you don't have enough comps to determine market value of a particular feature, another way is to use construction cost as your base cost. If you're still not sure, you should share your adjustment with your realtor or your investment community and ask them for a second opinion on the value of the features in that neighborhood. So let's look at an example of filling these in. In this neighborhood, I know that land values are worth about $210,000 per acre. So let's use that as the lot size feature value. As you can see, changing the value adjusted the first comparable by about $5,000 by subtracting the differences in lot sizes multiplied by their value per acre. We do the same, adding values for bedrooms, bathrooms, and any other features that we're comparing. Like I said before, the tool lists just the basic features to start with, and you can add as many of your own to get to the point where you're comparing apples to apples. So for example, I know that some of these properties have a pool, so let's add that as a feature that's worth $20,000. Clicking on Add Feature pops out a dialog where you can specify the name and value of the feature in that neighborhood. There's also an input for unit of measure, which normally you would leave as 1, but for special cases, like in the case of lot size, for example, where its value is measured by acre, which is 43,560 square feet, you have the ability to set that. But like I said, normally it's just 1, so we're going to leave it as a default. Clicking on Add Feature will add a row to the bottom of our features list, and now we can add those features to our subject and comparable properties to see how they will adjust value. I know that my subject property does not have a pool, and this expensive property here does, so let's add 1 for that feature, and we immediately see that there's an adjustment of $20,000 for this property. So now in the final row, we see how the total adjustments to the comparables affect their values, and ultimately come up with the adjusted ARV for our subject property shown here. So let's go back to our Comp Selection tab to see how we made out. If you were to run comps like 99% of investors out there who don't know any better, you would be using just the average of your closest comps, and you would have overshot the value of this property by $15,000. As an investor, you make your money on the buy side. Unfortunately, you would have likely overpaid for this property and ended up losing that $15K right out of your pocket when you tried to sell it. This tool just saved you from making a $15,000 mistake, and the more that you use it, the more money you're going to keep in your pocket. If you like what you see, please let us know, please let your friends know, and if you need any help with the tool, please reach out to us by sending us a message either using the chat widget at the bottom right of the tool or by emailing support@reikit.com. Also, don't forget to sign up for our mailing list to be the first to find out when we release new features and when we release new tools to save you money and make you more productive in your business. Keep on saving that hard-earned cash so that you can invest it in building your dream.